So it is Friday night, and I had been requested to show the meal that I always let rest before I do a quick wine video. And tonight I made some foie gras and a New York strip, domestic Wagyu. So there's a high amount of fat, cooked medium rare, but there's a good bit of fat in this steak. Today I'm trying this Celtic salt that I've never tried before, so we'll see how it tastes on the food. I think it might just have a slightly more minerally taste than some other standard salts. I typically use Maldon, which is a very flaky, thick salt. So I am going to pause this and get on with the video. So, wines for tonight. First, as I was cooking, I had a little bit of a Chardonnay. Spoken about this one before. 2014 Giant Magnum of Bernardus. 2014 Chardonnay, Monterey County. And this Chardonnay with the decade on it tastes like butterscotch. This is like butterscotch in a glass. I could definitely pick up the oak in this wine, but overall, this is just butterscotch in a glass to me. It sounds like sweet. It's not sweet, but it's sort of an acquired taste, I think. Well, aged white's an acquired taste, but certainly a taste that I enjoy. The wine I picked for tonight, and I have not had a wine from this region in a long time, so I am hoping this thing is stellar. The few times I've had this producer, it's been stellar. So this is Clos Mogador and Grata Lopes. Must be the region, the area or the village, but the region is Priorat, northeast of Spain. A region with, they call it Licorella soil. Pretty sure it's like mostly black slate, really steep vineyards, almost like a forgotten place, but these typically are pretty powerful wines. There's not a singular grape, it's a blend. I don't know what this blend is, but typically Grenache heavy. There'll be some Carignan in there and some other varietals, but typically we'll have a good bit of Grenache. And Grenache typically isn't this big, giant, bold wine. In Priorat, the way these blends are made, this is a 15.5% alcohol wine. It's a big boy. There's a delicious factor. There's always a mineral factor. Any Priorat I've had, or most Priorats I've had that have been in a higher dollar range, have been phenomenal. The lower dollar range, I've had a mixed bag. I used to buy this one called Blue Gray, which was really great. Just can't find it anymore. So I do think this will pair really well with this steak. Now this steak is extremely fatty, and I'll take one bite with the wine. If you want to try a wine from that region but don't want to spend the money on this one probably cost me $60. I think it easily retails for $90 now. So wow, that is an amazing aroma, and a little bit different than a lot of the reds I've been. Gosh, what is that aroma? I can't quite put my finger on it, but it just smells very different. A bit of a candied cherry strawberry thing, like a candied apple. Maybe. There's definitely this streak of minerality through it. And I know I've said that term before, but there absolutely is. Black raspberry. This has got a lot of dark berry-ish aromas, but it smells awesome. I mean, it really has a very enticing aroma. Like you just want to keep smelling it. And I could sit here and talk and wax poetic about the Priorat region, but do you care about the soils? Do you care if this wine tastes good? And if you see a Clos Mogador, would you want to buy it? I guess that's what I'm here to tell you. That's a 2017. It's got 7 years. That's awesome. So that's 15.5. The tannins are nice and silky, but pronounced in there. The wine isn't heavy, but it's concentrated with a lot of flavors. The finish is still going. Is at the tiniest hint of a spice, and not spicy as in hot, but some spiced component, but mostly it's dark fruited. This wine's awesome. And the acidity is there, which will counteract this really high fat steak, which this steak is so fatty, it's insane. I didn't realize how fatty this it's probably difficult to see. So this is domestic Wagyu, which I can eat a whole steak of domestic Wagyu, although this might be pretty heavy on the stomach with the fat content. Japanese Wagyu A5 is arguably the best cut of meat you could have, but it's not really what I would call a classic steak because it's so high in fat that you just like eating butter, literally eating butter, or you feel like you're eating meat butter. I love little bits of it. Just a few pieces is more than enough as an appetizer. I tried once to eat a whole steak of it, ate 2/3 of it. I thought I was gonna get sick. It was just such a high fat content, but extremely tender. Even when you cook it medium rare, it still doesn't even look medium rare because there's so much fat in it that the red doesn't even come through. This domestic Wagyu, and this one's a little higher fat content than some other domestic Wagyu steaks I've had, but you pay for this too. This was expensive. I think this is from Snake River Farms. So yeah, the steak and red wine just really goes well, but that absolutely goes, and it's a high fat content for sure. The salt seems fine. This Celtic salt, I think there was some hype about Celtic salt for a bit. I think I prefer the Maldon. Maybe it's not that it's, I know salt can be a little saltier or not saltier, but the texture of the Maldon, I think I appreciate more. This is a little more crunchy, because that's the word, crunchy. The other one's more flaky, and I just like that texture of salt, I guess, better than this sort of crunchy salt. So I'm not gonna sit here and eat this whole steak on camera, but I was requested to show some of the food I talk about. Yeah, this wine is going to only evolve more in the decanter. There's no doubt in my mind. I only popped this 20 minutes ago. It's definitely this other aroma that I just can't place yet. It'll come to me probably later, but I can't place it. It absolutely has blackberry. I had blackberries recently, and absolutely this has blackberries. Yeah, this wine's really good. It's not smoky, it's just another something in there. I wonder what the composition is now. I feel like this one may not be super heavy on Grenache. I think it's gonna have Grenache. I just don't know how much Grenache is in there. Grenache typically, why I keep bringing up Grenache, is a high acid, typically lower tannin type of grape. So it can be made to be bigger and bolder. In Châteauneuf-du-Pape, it tends to be, although I think I've spoken about Châteauneuf-du-Pape as much as it gets so much prestige. It's one of those areas I just can't fall in love with. But Gigondas, which is also in the south of Rhone, I absolutely love, and they're Grenache-based wines. So I don't know what the deal is with the Châteauneufs to me versus some Gigondas, especially from the one producer, Chateau de Cosme, especially his higher end stuff. But yeah, this wine is killer. It's also such a high alcohol, but it's so well balanced and restrained for that high alcohol. This is extremely high. 15.5 is a lot. It's like another fruit. This wine could even age a lot longer, without a doubt. The acidity's there and the tannin is still there. This has like a more lifted, higher acidity than a Cab to me, which I think will actually pair better with this high fat steak. So I think that's gonna, acidity can cut through fat in your food no matter what that fat is. fat in a steak or cheese. That's why white wine actually goes really, really well with cheese, because it's typically higher acid than red. Sometimes when you have cheese, like an aged cheese and red wine, it kind of fatigues your palate. At least it fatigues mine. Steak's really good. It just eats so tender, and it has so much fat that's got this buttery part to it, but it's got enough meat that it feels like a real steak. And I know it sounds silly, but if you've ever had the opportunity to try Japanese Wagyu A5, I would suggest eating about this much and enjoy the experience. But to me, it's not the best steak in the world. It just isn't. It's just not a steak to me. It's just an experience more than anything. Although, Japanese Wagyu A5, filet mignon is what I want to have on my 50th birthday, because there is, as much as it is a higher fat content steak, I do believe that there's a fair bit of meat in it, plus fillets typically are smaller than a ribeye or strip, and that is what I want as my 50-year-old, getting to that milestone of 50 as my meal for my birthday. On each one of these, I mean, there's just, gosh, there's fat in this thing. It's I want to say pomegranate, but that'd be too easy. It's not just pomegranate. It's something else. But there's pomegranate, without a doubt. There's some pomegranate flavor in here too. Ripe pomegranate. Kind of like that palm juice. Kind of reminds me a little bit of that stuff, if it's even still out. That's a long video. But I'm really enjoying, normally I would just do my 9-10 minutes, go sit, but I'm kind of eating as I go. And due to that, I can pontificate more on the meal plus wines, red and white. Normally I would have eaten the foie gras by now. It's probably cold. I should have already gobbled it up, but I'll get there. So, speaking of Priorat, and speaking on the journey to always find an affordable wine, number one thing I get asked, just my friends ask, I'll give them a great wine. I'm like, what do you think that's good? Well, that's it. That's what I get. $50, $100, $20. If it's good, it's good, right? And that's the feedback I'll get. So what do I want to serve, or what do I want to drink? Plus, what do I want to serve to guests? I do want to find a quality wine. That Ramirez de la Piscina Reserva Rioja 2017 was phenomenal. Even the 2018 is really solid, and I do like it, and I would serve it, and I did serve it last weekend. JJ Buckley has a wine, a Rioja, that I'm paying $25 for, so a little bit more, and it's Priorat, and that's what kind of got me thinking about Priorat. So how did I even get to a Priorat tonight? It's the only one I have left in my cellar, or my fridges, and I got two coming soon. And if those wines are of a higher quality and taste really good, I will buy probably a case to have for guests. I'm always looking for that wine. When I do buy a case of wine, it's typically it's either going to be really aged white, a phenomenal Napa Cab or Bordeaux that's affordable. It's got to be phenomenal for the price. So high quality price ratio type of thing. Or just a budget wine that I want to serve to guests, plus have as a house pour, just on a Tuesday. Gosh, this thing smells amazing. This really does have one of the most alluring aromas of a red wine I've smelled in a long time. God, it's delicious. So even just in this 15 minutes, this wine evolved. It evolved. And it actually is giving that more delicious factor, which, I mean, it just tastes like the fruit is riper now, which has this perceived sweetness without it actually being sweet. Higher alcohol wines typically also will make somebody believe that they're sweeter even though they're not. But it's also probably because of the way the sugars get broken down and the alcohol gets higher. So the grapes probably had a higher sugar count to begin with, which is why the alcohol ends up being pretty high when the yeasts get added. Anyway, this is a 5 out of 5 wine for me, without a doubt. And I'm going to go enjoy the rest of the steak. For those that requested to see my meat, there it is. Have a good night.